We've all heard the term learning curve, which is basically a layman's reference to the process and speed of learning new skills. Learning curve is how we transition from novice to expert, whether playing the violin or shooting a defensive handgun. Not surprisingly, the pace of learning is different for everyone.
Similarly, there are several distinctly different learning styles. Back in the 1970s, a great deal of research concluded that most people learn via three basic styles: auditory, visual, and kinesthetic, hands-on. Some years later, another category was added: reading, writing. Auditory. Some people learn by listening. Learning how to speak French by listening to a set of CDs is a classic example of auditory learning. Visual. Other people simply need to observe the activity being done correctly, and they've got it. You know, monkey see, monkey do. Kinesthetic. Many folks only absorb knowledge and gain skills by laying their hands on the subject matter. This is particularly applicable when trying to master a mechanical device like a car or a handgun. Reading, writing. This method is for the mathematicians, philosophers, and poets in the group.
Most people absorb information through a blend of the four learning styles because in reality, nobody lands squarely on just one category. At Front Sight, we introduce literally dozens of techniques to our students over a 4-day period. We make the assumption that our students are brand new to the material, which most are. Furthermore, we have no idea which learning style applies to any given student. We must therefore hit all of the learning styles with each new technique taught.
At Front Sight, each new technique is introduced with a detailed lecture delivered by the range master so the auditory learners can grasp the material. Next, for the visual learners, the technique is demonstrated perfectly several times. These demonstrations must include all of the different weapons present in the class and must be done both right and left-handed.
After the lecture and demonstration are complete, the next step appeals to the kinesthetic learners.
The students practice the new technique under close one-on-one supervision with an unloaded or dry weapon.
This dry practice allows the students to gain skill and confidence without the stress of a loaded weapon.
Once all of the students have a sufficient level of skill to guarantee safety, they shoot the exercise using live ammunition. If anybody is experiencing difficulty with a given technique, they go back to dry practice with an unloaded gun until they are certain they can safely perform the skill.
There's certainly no shame in additional dry practice.
In fact, those students who spend additional time on dry practice generally perform better because the muscle memory runs deeper.
Dry practice is the key to success.
As the course progresses, we slowly introduce stress into the equation. Make no mistake, gunfights are stressful. Stress in the training environment may come in the form of time pressure, turning targets, a concealed holster, multiple adversaries, photographic targets, shooting in a low light, shooting in complete darkness with a flashlight, a live fire tactical simulator, or a skills test. Stress is applied in a smooth, gradual fashion so the students continue to perform the techniques properly without a sense of fear or overwhelm.
Again, if the stress becomes a bit much for any given student, no problem.
We simply remove that particular element of stress until the student is again ready and eager to continue. Everybody learns at their own pace. Now let's not ignore the reading-writing learners. At Front Sight, we offer dry practice manuals so the student has a detailed written manual full of photographs to remind them of each technique they learned during the course. So to summarize the progression or learning curve at Front Sight: lecture, demonstrate, dry practice, live fire with stress, review with a written dry practice manual. I assure you this attention to detail is not the norm in the firearms training industry. Most firearm trainers rely on only one or two learning styles, certainly not all four. Compare the Front Sight approach described above to the norm in the firearms training world. Over the last 30 years, I've attended lots of courses at other shooting schools across the country. Most instructors in this industry simply demonstrate a new technique and then have their students try it, usually with live ammo. This is a recipe for disaster. The results are unpredictable at best, and sometimes even dangerous. Furthermore, the skills are not ingrained sufficiently into muscle memory and are soon lost because gun handling and marksmanship are perishable skills.
Do it right. Follow the proper learning curve offered at Front Sight and derive all of the skill and confidence that you deserve. To subscribe to our free gun training reports, go to www.frontsight.com. To watch informative and entertaining original Front Sight TV shows, go to www.frontsight.tv.